Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup College Football Podcast, the sharpest college football podcast, Week 8. I am joined, as always, by my co-host BuckMetrics. How are you doing today? How was last weekend for you?
Yeah, last weekend was the regression to the mean. Um, I didn't quite feel like the co-host of the sharpest college football podcast. I can tell you that.
That's fair. I mean, it was regression to the mean. It was a positive weekend for me, like slightly. Not my best weekend of the year so far, but I still scraped some stuff out. But some losses and some close losses too. Like a lot of the stuff we
Yeah,
picked last week, it was like Oklahoma State like versus TCU. TCU was clearly the right side there. Um, like Florida State, that whatever. That was whatever. Oregon State just crushed Washington State somehow. I don't. That's still kind of in disbelief of that. Old Mississippi State just had a bad game again, which they did against LSU, and they hadn't had one in a couple weeks, but apparently they just were horrible again. So yeah, a lot of kind of like weird bad things that happened, and
yeah.
yeah,
Those close ones even out over season. I don't get upset about that.
no,
They happen in bunches too. It seems like it never seems like you get four that split two and two.
mhm,
They always
exactly,
either just
yeah,
make your weekend or completely crush you.
exactly. So all right, so the week that was, let's go to the executive dashboard.
Yeah, I've got a major announcement here, and this is going to be news to you.
Yes.
So I'm the co-host, so I'm not in charge. I can't make changes. But what I did was I convened my cabinet of advisors, English Dave, Hambone, Johnny Tip, and Moneyline Max, and we agreed that it was time for me to invoke the 25th Amendment of the Lean Toss-Up Constitution. I assumed power,
Okay.
and what I did was I issued an edict that we're embargoing unless we're picking one of their games. No more Iowa talk. No, nothing
That's
more about Iowa. It's been beaten to death.
that is fair. I actually did have an Iowa joke, so that is a little sad. But I can I say the Iowa joke quickly then?
Then I'll say one, and this will be it. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, so obviously Iowa plays Ohio State this week. It was a bye week for both teams last week, and a lot of people say, well, it's a bye week, you can't lose. Well, before when I ran the model last week, the spread was Ohio State minus 28. I ran it again. Now this week the spread is over 30. So
Oh
now,
Jesus.
Iowa's actually apparently gotten worse over the bye. So that
Yeah.
was my Iowa joke for the week.
They lost yards in the bye week. My Iowa joke starts at kickoff of this season, and it's not over yet. Okay, so all right.
Very,
So
very, very fair. All right, so fine. No more Iowa talk.
yes,
We will just laugh at them on Saturday instead of during our podcast.
okay. So the week that was, just following up on some of the stuff we brought up last week, I asked the question: do we have to believe in Oklahoma State now? And the answer is no. But they had an overtime loss to TCU, but it's not like they gave a definitive. They're terrible. They're actually a little better than, well, they're much better than both our models expected.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised by that. I think TCU is definitely the better team. Um, it was really sad when I think they converted like a fourth down in OT to get the touchdown. Which had they not done that, we would have covered the spread and we wouldn't be talking about this game
Yeah.
right now. Um, the thing of it is, we were really really low on them, and maybe that was a little unfair. I don't think it was that unfair. It was a little unfair, maybe. Maybe they're not that bad. I still think TCU is a really good team, though. Not taking anything away from TCU, but this is kind of us talking about, okay, maybe we were really too low on Oklahoma State, and they play Tech. Oklahoma State plays Texas this week, and I like I I first saw an early look ahead line on uh on FanDuel, which basically had that even Oklahoma State slightly favored. Didn't
Hmm.
touch it. Now it's up to like four, and this line just keeps ballooning. And like I have no like I don't know. Oh, it's six now. Texas minus 6.
Jeez.
I have no idea what's going to happen in this game, and whoever's betting on this, they also have no idea what's going to happen. Like literally anything could happen in this game. Like I don't know. I'm not touching this game. One thing I will say. Well, we'll talk. I think we'll talk about Texas later, but yeah, like again, don't touch this Oklahoma State game.
No, I mean, literally, there is no outcome that would surprise me. You could say that Cowboys win by 4 touchdowns or Texas wins by 4 touchdowns. I could
I'd be
just,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
sure, yeah, absolutely, absolutely was going to happen.
Hmm.
So yeah, interesting. Okay. I also asked last week, do we have to believe in Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pyne now? And he emphatically gave that a no answer with all of 150 yards passing in a home loss to Stanford. Come on.
Yeah, very very fun. I mean, the thing of it was, it was funny because there's a lot of like lines that were like 13 and a half, 14 and a half, 15 and a half, in and around like the over, so it's just over 2 touchdowns. This one was one, I think this line was 16 and a half. My model had it at 9, like kind of like the other ones that I touched. I didn't touch this one. Regret not touching it. I'm just like, I felt burned when Stanford decided to not cover wide receivers there at the end of the game against Oregon State. So I was like, I was burned. I'm like, nah, I'm not. And I've been burnt. We've been burned by Notre Dame, right? We got burned by them against BYU. So I'm like, no, I'm not gonna touch it. Should have touched it, but again, sometimes it's smart to not touch stuff like that. Like that's fine. I'll live by not touching things like that. And yeah, like I don't know what's up with this Notre Dame team. Like I don't like again. I think after seeing BYU get destroyed by Arkansas, I think we're now looking at like now like okay, Notre Dame beat BYU. Okay, BYU lost to Arkansas, almost lost to Baylor, and they lost to Oregon pretty badly. Okay, um, Notre Dame beat North Carolina. Okay, North Carolina almost lost to Duke. North Carolina barely beat Miami, right? So these wins now that this Notre Dame team have look horrible now, and like literally through the day they were looking worse and worse as these results were coming in. So like this, like I am really concerned about this Notre Dame team, and they're playing a game this weekend. Gonna be pretty fun this weekend. I think. I don't think the Irish should be that big of a favorites against anybody.
We'll see about that. I don't know. UNLV without Brumfield is not UNLV with Brumfield. I'll put it that way.
Fair.
Different teams. Um, Last week I was wondering, hey, what happened to just dropping 8 in the coverage to beat a Mike Leach offense? And I didn't see the game, but I'm
I
wondering if
don't think you
Kentucky did
needed
a little of that.
to.
Yeah, I mean, they only had 225 yards total at Kentucky. I didn't see it, but I don't know. I don't know if don't know if somebody figured out something. I will say that Mark Stoops is probably the best defensive mind in the SEC. Maybe after Saban, although I don't know how sharp Saban has to be when you just have a bunch of 5 stars and your best asset is recruiting and yelling at coaches. You don't really have to earn everything like Stoops does. So maybe that just had a big part in what happened on Saturday to Mississippi State.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, we've seen a performance from like this from Mississippi State before. They had a performance very similar to this to LSU. That's Brian Kelly again, a pretty good head coach. So it seems as though good head coaches are able just to completely shut down this Mike Leach offense, and it's unfortunate for Mike Leach that he's no longer in. What was he the head coach for Washington State? Right, he's no
Yeah.
longer in the Pac-12. You're not getting like random coaches anymore. These are the top coaches in the on the planet, literally. You're not getting like random guys who have no idea how to play defense. Like you're getting guys who can scheme. Like okay, like it's not just like okay, run really fast and get open. It's like okay, we're gonna blanket you and we're gonna shut you down. And I think that yeah, like although I think there's a bit of an interesting kind of, I'm not sure if it's a bug or kind of a feature at this point, but it's something I'm going to look at. It seems as though, and we're seeing this with the NFL as well in the NFL model. It seems as though my model really loves quarterbacks with high completion percentages. Which, to be fair, that makes sense, right? You want people to complete passes, but it seems to be definitely overvaluing them. For example, the model in the NFL thinks Geno Smith is like the greatest quarterback ever of all time, and it's like he is not. Like the Seahawks are not that good. They're good. They're pretty good. He's not that good though. And this is the thing. So I'm gonna have to look at it and see. It might be overestimating completion percentage and kind of overvaluing that as not like directly, but kind of as like knock-on effects for if you complete a pass, you get more yards, like so, etc. Right. So that's something I'm gonna look at and see. But yeah, it's I think this Mississippi State team. I think against bad teams, you play them against good teams like Alabama will be able to shut them down. I think you fade them against the good teams. So
Yep. Agree. All right, and then finally, last topic that we talked about last week, my BBMI. I thought the market was way undervaluing James Madison and San Jose State, and I was way off on both of those. Kind of emblematic of how my weekend went.
Yeah.
All right. So final scores and just some storylines that are coming out of those. The big one, awesome game. Tennessee beats Alabama. One thing I didn't see really reported too much is Alabama rushed for only 3.7 yards per attempt. Kind of out of character. I don't know if this is just a one-off. Tennessee's defense is okay, not great. I don't know if this is just a function of, big game and 100,000 people in orange screaming with their pitchforks and stuff, or is this something to be concerned about Alabama going forward? It seems like I like Jameer Gibbs. I have a Heisman ticket on him. He's good, but I just don't know if the offensive line is there. They're really dependent on Bryce Young, and is this going to bite him in the butt again?
Well, I mean, the thing of it is, the last 2 weeks we've seen the backup quarterback for Alabama not looking great there. I mean, again, you have
Hmm.
to think about next year, right? Bryce Young will be drafted in the NFL, definitely within the top, maybe if not the first overall pick, which is a decent chance he could be the first overall pick, definitely within the top five. Again, there's some variance there depending on like which team will take him. Do they need a quarterback or not? Right? There's some variance there, but he's definitely a top NFL prospect. He will be gone next season. So at this point, you have to start thinking, okay, well, he's gone. Jameer Gibbs probably, I think, maybe has another year or two, but he could potentially be gone. You're losing Will Anderson. You're probably losing some pieces. Like the Alabama did not have a ton of draft picks last year.
Hmm.
They didn't have a ton of them. So there's got to be some guys who are heading towards the NFL very soon. So yeah, like this could long term, this could start becoming a bit of a problem for Alabama if they're that dependent on Bryce Young. Now again, obviously they're Alabama, they restock, right? How many 5 stars right now are like getting mixed reps, and next year they'll be full on starters, right? So, but there is some concern, especially at the quarterback position. And again, it's Alabama, right? They had to go to the transfer portal to get their number one running back. Not great, right? You'd want that to be homegrown talent there. They didn't have it, right? So I the thing is, there's another interesting facet of this game. I kind of want to talk about the Tennessee aspect of this game too, because the more I think about it, this game was kind of like a must-win for Tennessee. Because if Tennessee lost, it's like so now Tennessee's won this game, so if they beat Georgia, obviously they go to the SEC championship game to play probably Alabama again, potentially Ole Miss, but probably
Hmm.
Alabama again. Because Alabama doesn't have the loss to Texas A&M this year, so it's probably gonna be Bama. But if they had lost to Georgia, so now remember if Tennessee goes and loses to Georgia, then there's a lot of important questions about what happens then. Now, if Tennessee had lost this game and then beaten Georgia, like this is going to be a mess. Where like you can make depending on how this ends up at the end of the year, you can make very strong cases for one loss Alabama, 0 or 1 loss Georgia, 0 or 1 loss Tennessee, and then you still have to worry about where the hell is Clemson in there? Is Clemson undefeated? Clemson's
Hmm.
got Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to kind of suck this year, but as they always say, that's not their fault. Like Clemson's probably going to get a rematch with Wake Forest in the SEC championship game, or the ACC. Maybe even Syracuse is in there too. Like they've got some interesting things to happen there in the ACC still. Big Ten, okay, it's going to be a battle between Michigan State and Michigan and Ohio State, right? One of those teams is going to win the last week of the season, but then because of the way the divisions work, only one of them goes to the conference championship game. So basically, that becomes an elimination game, which is really dumb, by the way. The Pac-12, what do you do with the undefeated UCLA? What do you do about an
Yeah.
undefeated like? So we're getting to a point where this is getting really really messy here.
Try
Like
making a case against UCLA if they go undefeated,
exactly right
beating
because
Utah and USC and Oregon.
yeah,
I mean, those three teams will all be ranked at the end of the year.
like yeah, if Oregon were to beat UCLA this year, like if this year this week, if Oregon does beat UCLA, and Oregon goes on to win the Pac-12, are you telling me that they're gonna not get in because their one loss was a really bad loss to Georgia, the number one team?
Yeah. I that case is easier because it's such a bad loss. I think
Fair.
if you get to UCLA and you say if they're undefeated and they have ranked, wins over three ranked teams, it's it's pretty hard to keep them out.
It is.
It's going to be pointing to like their weak non-conference schedule, um, which was really I don't know. Now, randomly, here's the strangest bedfellows in the smallest population possible. Your co-host BuckMetrics and UCLA fans going to be big South Alabama fans the rest of the way because it helps everybody in that boat
That is
somehow.
true. Well, so this is the thing, right? It's such a weird like because like what do you do about a undefeated TCU? Right, like like
Yeah.
TCU will have played Texas, which will probably be ranked by then, depending on what happens. They'll have to play at least either a ranked team, like a potentially ranked Oklahoma State again, or Kansas. Like they're gonna like again, if chaos starts happening, right? If TCU goes down this weekend, if Clemson goes down to Syracuse, like this starts getting a little bit easier. But if you've got a bunch of undefeated ones, are they really just going to stay fine? We're just going to stick three SEC teams in Ohio State and call it a playoff?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
Yeah.
that's what you're gonna have to do, right? And the on the flip side of that, though, I will say that if the playoff is some combination of Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Tennessee, which is definitely could be after this week, how fun is that going to be? You're going to have one defense and three offenses. That's actually going to be pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
It'd be a nice mix. You'd have something competitive in the first round at least.
Yeah, because that was the problem last year, right? Because we saw Georgia just maul a Michigan team that was definitely overrated, and we saw an Alabama team basically just crush a completely outmatched Cincinnati team, right? So
Hmm.
I think it would be really fascinating to see like at least one of those games will have a high amount of points scored, and we're gonna get to finally see an offense versus a defense somewhere in there. So I'd be
Yeah,
really
you know
excited for
what?
that. But
You jerk. You just made a point for that setup, which because it'd be the best round of games. UCLA, I think, would deserve it, but they would just not compete in that group.
yeah,
Same for TCU.
well then in that case, then what's the because then at that point then so say Georgia does beat Tennessee. If
Hmm.
Georgia beats Bama, does Tennessee go to the SEC championship? Like, do they go to the playoff then? Is it like because then you have a two-loss Alabama team, but their loss was to a top-ranked Georgia. Like so, this is
That's exactly how Alabama got in that one year when they lost to Auburn.
yeah, because then
They got in as a one loss team that didn't even win their division.
exactly,
And I don't think that they would have a win. I don't think that team probably had a win as impressive as Tennessee beating Alabama this year.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's the question, right? So
Yeah.
this is a step that needed to happen, but it's gonna cause some mess here. It's like this
Yeah.
was based because if Tennessee lost this game, their path to the because they basically I mean it still existed because they have to beat Georgia and then they have to win against Bama in a rematch. But like this is an absolute mess here. Like this could go.
Yeah.
This is good. We're heading towards a train wreck here. And again, this is only going to make calls for that 12-team playoff just even like whoever gets snubbed because someone is going to get snubbed here.
Yeah.
Whoever gets snubbed, they're going to be there's going to be calls for like the playoff like as of next year. So
Yep. Agree. And if even though I will say they will have earned it. If it's UCLA, I think that would be great. Not because I hate UCLA, but because I have more animus towards the remnants of the Pac-12, and it would just be another feather in the cap of why the LA teams have to leave that garbage conference.
yeah,
Anyways, next game, Michigan beats Penn State handily at home. The Sean Clifford we've come to know and love for years,
yes,
showed up in Sean Clifford fashion, went 7 of 19 for 120 yards, over 6 per attempt. Good job. Um, before the game, I heard James Franklin say about Sean Clifford, well, he gets us in the right play. Um, Great. I don't know if that's like just the most backhanded compliment you can give a quarterback, but do you think he's going to switch to Aller now, or do you think it's going to take until there's a second loss or until next season? I just don't know what you're getting at this point.
well, the thing is, again, this season is again we kind of just had this conversation about like we talked about a narrow path for Tennessee. You lost to Michigan. You also have to you have to play Ohio State in a couple weeks, and again this week against Minnesota, that's not a gimme either, right? So
Hmm.
like I kind of think you just tank at this point. I mean, actually, you don't really tank in college football because you can't get a better draft pick. But like, you basically say, okay, the season's over.
You
Maybe you
invest
bring
for the
in the
future.
yeah, you prepare for the future, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Penn State's a good team. They'll go to a bowl, maybe a New Year's Six bowl. There's a lot of them, but like maybe they just sneak in somewhere like the Outback Bowl or like one of the more prestigious bowls. But yeah, like I don't see a path forward. And again, this is something I of all the results from this last weekend, this is the one I'm like the most happy about because we were talked about this game. We circled this game for what two at least 2 to 3 weeks here.
Hmm.
We're like, okay, Penn State's gonna get blown out here. We said this for weeks. We knew this was happening, and we perfect call there. And like yeah, it's exactly what we thought. Like they could just not keep up. Michigan was just a far better team, and we knew it, and we saw all the hype around them, and we're like, nope, that's wrong. Penn State's not that good. Sure enough, that was right. So
So we agree that he should switch.
he should.
Now let's each put a number out here. How many regular season games will Drew Aller start at quarterback for Penn State this season?
Okay, it's late in the season though. That's the thing, right? Now you've got Minnesota this week. Ooh, do you say okay if they lose to Minnesota, which is definitely possible? Do you say screw it? He starts well. Do you throw him against Ohio State? But Ohio State's defense isn't particularly scary though, right? Like their offense is scary, but their defense isn't scary.
Yeah, they're holding people to like 16 points a game. They haven't really played anybody, but
Well, it helps when you just score points, right? Like at certain points you just
there's
kind of
that
give
too.
up.
Yes.
Like, yeah. So I could like let's see how this week goes. If they lose to Minnesota, which I definitely think is possible, I think we could see Drew Allard getting the start for the last couple games of the season. I think, but
All right,
I
I'm going
just
to be a good interviewer here. I need you to. I'm going to pin you down on a number. How many is he going to start this season?
it's over under 2.5.
Okay. Yeah, after Ohio State, they're at Indiana, host Maryland, at Rutgers, and Michigan State. I'm actually going to go three here, even though I would have probably said he's not going to change. I think you look at those last four, and it's like they're going to get probably just clubbed by Ohio State, and at that point, it'll be like, okay, um, we've got not a horrible analog as Wisconsin firing Paul Chryst before they play Northwestern. It's like what a great stretch to play these guys. Indiana's a horrible defense; they're just a bad team. Maryland's defense is struggling. Rutgers, that's pretty much an interesting test, and the Michigan State's defense is still bad too. So
Yeah,
I'd say three.
I could see 3.
Okay. Um, we talked about this already. TCU beats Oklahoma State in overtime. TCU was absolutely the right side. That was just frustrating. That took them a while to wake up. They outgained Oklahoma State by like 100 yards.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's a couple early quick early touchdowns just screwed everything up basically. I think they got up
Yeah.
like 21-10 early. Like that was it. That was the dagger basically, and it was kind of they came back and they almost did cover, but that was really hard to deal with after that.
Yep. Actually, they would have covered had that Oklahoma State kicker not made like a 51-yarder to end the first overtime.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, crazy. Okay. Um, Ole Miss beats Auburn. Kind of a weird game. Ole Miss was running away with it. It was a little closer at the end. Auburn rushed for 300 yards and Ole Miss ran for 450. Um, that is a lot for two teams that are, well, at least one of them's capable of passing the ball pretty well. Credit to Auburn though for staying competitive, if not playing actual defense. I mean, they're not giving up. Um, and I think they kind of realize, I've hit on a little bit of this. They don't have Auburn doesn't have an athletic director. And then I somebody pointed out that both their coordinators are guys that Harsin brought from Boise in the off season. So it's not like things get a lot better if you get rid of guy who's going to get fired and you escalate one of the coordinators who was like loyal to him and probably hates everybody and is just upset that they're stuck in Auburn, Alabama, just
Yeah.
for a 1 year stint. So I'm pretty sure he's going to make it through the season. Also, they're off this week, and I think if he was going to be let go, this would have been the time. So unless I missed an announcement today, I think
Nope.
he's there through the end of the season.
I think at a certain point, like there's no real like unless you have a new AD, like I guess the new athletic director, their first job is going to be just to fire Brian Harson. Be like, okay, step one, go into office. Step two, call Brian Harson, and then
Oh, it's got to be part of the interview process for the new AD.
the practicing of firing. Okay, we're gonna part of your interviewing process is I'm gonna pretend to be Brian Harson. You're gonna be you, and you're gonna fire me. Okay? No, I mean this is the thing, right? It's yeah, like they will fire him at some point, but the thing of it is, the problem is I think they want a good athletic director because the thing is they need to. But the longer they drag this out for, though, like again, other schools, like you look at some of the better hires from last year. Like although Florida's on-field results have not been good, I blame a lot more on Anthony Richardson. Florida's process was good. They have a good new coach. Um, Oregon, I mean, they kept their athletic directors like you, but like they kind of knew about Mario Cristobal. Well, actually, no, that was after the season was done, basically around bowl time. So like a lot of them got off the ground pretty quickly, but like I'd imagine you'd want a head start on this. Like you don't want to wait. Like again, we're only 6 weeks left in the season here. I don't think you want to sit around and like be like, oh well, we've got some time. It's fine. Like no, you if you're gonna fire your head coach, you probably want to do it in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Like you want to start planning that now.
Yeah. Well, you can start some planning without actually firing him. Just there's only so far you can go.
Yeah.
We talked about Notre Dame a little bit, and we'll get more later. Just that home loss to Stanford, they had only 300 yards of offense. And the thing is, you talked about their unimpressive wins. How about their losses? Stanford has only one win over an FBS team, and that's at Notre Dame. Marshall has only one win over an FBS team. That's also at Notre Dame. So um, I think we're down to their resume is basically cool uniforms, good looking coach, young vibe, good defense, and a almost kind of close win to Ohio State.
Yeah, that the thing is, the longer we go into the season, the crazier that game even seems. It just seems like that game was I don't know, like so long ago. Also,
Classic week one throwout.
yeah, I'm looking at this now. So unfortunately, UNLV has beaten Utah State and New Mexico. So they've beaten two FBS teams. So they do not. So
Yeah.
again, they have more than the 0 FBS wins that Marshall and Stanford did. So they can't beat Notre Dame this week, unfortunately.
That's unfortunate for you. Just remember, we're a UNLV football pod, so a lot
I
of us are taking what you said personally.
No, here's the thing. I actually like. I already bet UNLV, so I'm good. But
There you go.
yeah, no, that randomly the line is going down. It was like it opened on my book 24 and a half, and 1600. It immediately went down to 1550. I'm like, okay, I guess I gotta grab this now. Now it's down to 24. So that I mean slowly, but it's like 2 days. So, but
Yep.
yeah, no, I actually like UNLV this weekend. I think they can do something.
Yeah, I think that's one of our dual model plays later.
Yeah.
We'll confirm that to next part two. Illinois beats Minnesota 26-14. Illinois defense is just freaking awesome. I bring this one up though more for the fact that I want to congratulate everybody who, when there was news that Tommy DeVito might be injured and Chase Brown might be injured, and the number moved from 3.5 to 6.5, and everybody grabbed those numbers as they went up. Just congratulations. I really have a red ass when it comes to the injury news and the stupid moves that happen. So hope you enjoyed that one, guys. I'll just keep it at that.
Yeah, I actually got this a 7 on the day of. So I got even better than I got a 7 on the day of. But no, yeah, like it was I was on Illinois. I regret not betting the money line. I'm like cuz my model still had like Minnesota without Tommy DeVito, and it actually had it as I believe it was like 6.5 Minnesota minus 6.5. So I didn't play the money line, but I should have. I definitely should have. But yeah, no, Illinois dominated that game. Like there's a couple of explosive plays out of Minnesota. Minnesota was just having a bad game. I think Illinois is for real, which is kind of crazy, but they are, and I think like can Illinois win the Big Ten West? I kind of think so.
Well, stay tuned to part two.
Okay.
Yes. Buffalo beats UMass 34-7. This is only noteworthy because ever since I said on the podcast that I thought Buffalo could lose 10 games, they're undefeated. So they just shoved that one in my face. I'm proud of myself there.
Yeah, this game was so like this was a model play for us. We picked up like
Yeah.
UMass plus 17. It was never close. Well, it was close for a bit, obviously, because it was like in the first quarter they weren't covering minus 17. But no, like it seemed close at first, but then they just ran all over them. UMass just stopped scoring. Um, yeah, it
I think
was.
I, I think yeah that's kind of been a returning headline for UMass this season. Has just
Yeah,
been UMass stop scoring.
it was funny. I started watching this game, and I at first because I don't watch a lot of UMass football as one might imagine. So when I first turned on the game, the one the I basically saw the team in red get sacked, and I thought that was the other team. I'm like, yeah, that's good. We just sacked him. I'm like, oh no, wait, that's the team I bet on. Oops, I didn't realize and then I realized, oh wait, UMass is in red, Buffalo is in white. So I'm like, oh, that's not good. So,
No.
but yeah, that shows how much that's how much UMass football I watch.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty big club that you're in. Um, All right, Ball State beats UConn 25-21. I bring this up because I've highlighted at least once, I think maybe twice, Ball State's quarterback is bad. This game he threw for less than 50% for 147 yards against UConn. Ball State is actually 4-3, 2-1 in the conference. I think they could be sneaky horrible. They have a Eastern Michigan just stinks this year, so they've got a pretty easy opponent this season. But looking to fade them once they get to some tougher MAC teams than Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, I agree.
Toledo beats Kent State 52-31. The 52 is a concern. I really, really, really like Sean Lewis. I think he would be a great head coach, but he is not finding any kind of DC. This is a new one this season, and it's not fixing whatever their problems are. And I'm just kind of worried if this is going to cost him an opportunity to bet head coaching spot. Because I'll put it this way: as somebody whose team is going to be in the Big Ten soon, I would not want Nebraska or Wisconsin to hire Sean Lewis. I'm actually a lot better if, say if Wisconsin stays with Jim Leonard, for example. Um, so, I don't know. I I hope he gets that fixed. He's too much of a resource just to waste away in the MAC. And then finally, Western Kentucky beats Middle Tennessee 35-17, which just extends this awesome streak. So since Middle Tennessee beat Miami at Miami, they have been outscored by Conference USA opponents 61-121. That is 20 points a game. And that is the Conference USA.
Yeah, again, that result is so baffling. I got the win, I got the cover, and I got the outright win on that, so I'm very happy with that result. But man, it's just every day we stray further from that light, and I can't I can't like we keep saying Middle Tennessee State beat Miami, like that's a thing that happened, but like it feels like it didn't happen. Like that's the thing, right? And like I don't know, like, but again, like every week Miami looks pretty bad too.
Yeah,
Like,
no, they verify their crap effort. It's just
yeah, like I can believe that Miami lost to Middle Tennessee State. Like, you're like, oh, Miami lost to Middle Tennessee State. Like, that makes sense. But it's like Middle Tennessee State beat Miami. I'm like, I don't think that's true. Like, it's so weird.
yes. Yeah. Um, all right, market intelligence. And some of these lines have probably moved. This is what happens when I look at the circuit opening lines. So let me know if these have moved. I see that Virginia opened at Virginia opened a 3-point dog at Georgia Tech. Clearly not a great year one for Tony Elliott. And I don't even know if this has moved because Georgia Tech, there's still a lot of just bad history in this year's numbers. Has this moved?
It's basically I see a three, I see a
Okay.
3.5. A fun thing about this is that in my one book on Bet365 it actually says Virginia Tech versus Georgia Tech. So they actually have the wrong Virginia team, which is I think that's really funny. Because any other book it is Virginia. Like I literally when I saw that because like usually Bet365 is very correct in the teams that are playing, I was like, oh no, this is wrong. I literally went through my like, cause I have the entire season schedule. I'm like, I went there. I'm like, oh, is this a cascade error? Have I been like assigning Virginia Tech to Virginia Tech
Hmm.
stats? I was like, nope, it's right. And I looked at other books, it's like, oh no, it's Virginia. And I'm like, I looked at ESPN, it says Virginia. And it's like, oh, it's just Bet365 is wrong. So, yeah, it's fascinating that they got that wrong. I actually kind of like. I know sounds crazy, and that's probably because it is crazy. But I kind of like Georgia Tech here. The thing of it is, it's a combination of like Georgia Tech is still like my model is has this actually has this Georgia Tech -3, or 3.2. So like my model basically says this is correct, but the thing of it is you have to factor in that like, oh, okay, like Georgia Tech's been pretty bad. They've won two straight games, right? But like there's still a lot of data of them being pretty bad, right? So I think they might overperform that spread slightly. So it's also a Thursday night game. I think this Thursday night football game is also pretty bad. So definitely you definitely want some other plays on Thursday night rather than just watching Arizona versus New Orleans.
Yes. Um, all right, next one, UCF is giving 3 at East Carolina. I don't believe in them to hold on for the long term, but UCF has been like much better than ECU. I don't know if this is just a referendum on maybe ECU is a tough place to play, or is this just the market saying that this is actually kind of tough, two teams that are tough to get a handle on.
So it's actually 5 now.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, that makes a little more sense.
I've got I have it basically that, I think. I think I have, like, UC I have slight value on ECU on my spread. But, like, not a lot. I think I have yeah, I have basically a tie. I have basically a pick. I have this game basically even. My model really hates UCF. It hated them last week when they scored 70 against Temple. So um, that game was just like they were like
Yeah,
tied, and then all of a sudden they just like scored like what like 60 unanswered points. Um, great Friday night game or Thursday night game. Sorry, but yeah, no, I kind of think East Carolina is the play there. I don't trust this UCF team at all to do literally anything. So yeah, if I'm playing this game, I'm taking the UCF. I'm taking East Carolina.
I don't know. I just think just based on the results so far, just UCF's just had more impressive returns. Having said that, my model disagrees with me, and actually they like ECU by 3.
Hmm,
Um, so I'm alone on my island, and you you and my model are against me on this one. So
three
we'll
against
see.
one.
I don't know anything. Um, Kansas at Baylor. Baylor giving 10. Um, this is interesting. I'm taking this as Baylor has disappointed, and even if you just take away expectations, they just haven't been impressive either. Um, I'm just interpreting this as there's just not a lot of belief in Jason Bean as the Kansas quarterback, right?
Well, I kind of think this is a case of like the books were wrong on Kansas for so long, right? Like we got ridiculous lines. Like we had I think Kansas plus what? 13 and a half against either Houston or West Virginia. One of them was like 2 and then the other one was like also a 9. Like they've been off so badly in terms of Kansas. I think what happened is Kansas was massively overperformed their expectations, and I think that they're like, oh, okay, Kansas is. They're like, okay, Kansas is still bad, and then
Mhm.
Kansas played TCU, lost, didn't cover kind of covered. Depends on when you bet it, they covered or not covered it,
But
and
they're
I
super competitive with an undefeated team in a really good conference.
no, exactly. But then last week, Dylan Gabriel kind of crushed it. Now, to be fair, it was close though. The spread was 9, 9.5. Final
Hmm.
score was 10, so it was still competitive. But I kind of think this is the model being this is the books at least their model being like, yeah, okay, Kansas isn't actually that good. Like they were blown out last week or semi blown out. They're not actually that
Mm.
good. But I'm on them. Like I love them in this spot. I'm fairly sure I have them favored here.
Does anything on Baylor remind you of Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma?
No.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
Baylor team. Well, the thing is, So I have this basically even. I have Kansas slightly favored. The thing was last week. I remember a lot of people on Twitter were like, because it was last Friday night was West Virginia, or no, last Thursday I think was West Virginia Baylor. Or
hmm
last it was a weekday, and everybody was like, I can't understand why Baylor's laying 3 here. And I'm like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I kind of want to take West Virginia the points. Now I didn't actually. I just bet Baylor quarterback over 1.5 passing touchdowns. That cashed pretty early, so I was good. I'm like, cool, that's it. I'm out of this game. But if I was gonna bet anything in that game, I would have bet West Virginia. Like I don't trust this Baylor team at all, and I mean this Kansas defense is pretty bad. But like yeah, if you have the possibility of Jalen Daniels coming in here, like I'm all in. Give me Kansas.
yeah. I think that number's come down a little bit. I'm showing that when I updated my model last night,
I think
it
it's
was at 9.
8.
Oh, okay,
I have. Let me just see. I saw an 8 earlier today. Um, yeah, I've got an 8.
okay. All right. This next line, Cincy, and this has to have moved. Cincy opened up giving 4 at SMU. I don't know if this is the market just isn't sold on Cincy, or is this just like the stink line that's begging you to take Cincy? I don't know, but this has to have moved, right?
Yep, it did move. It is now Cincy -3.
Okay. That's the SMU's got to be the play. When you see that, when
No,
the stink line just moves, that's just SMU's got to be the place. SMU's 3-3.
I think this is because I think since he lost to who did they lose to? They lost to some.
Arkansas.
Yes, no. Since he lost to someone else, didn't they? Or no? Oh no,
No, they've got one loss.
I'm thinking Coastal. Coastal lost to Old Dominion. No, since he
Yeah.
doesn't have another loss, but like I think people are high on SMU because they crushed um, Navy
Navy?
in prime time. Actually, they didn't even crush them. They actually didn't even cover the spread, but they looked really good doing it though.
Yeah.
Like this is like I kind of think this is an example of like these are I mean Cincinnati's about to become a kind of a national name, but SMU is kind of like I don't think they think there's gonna be much betting interest in the game. This is a 2 o'clock game on a Saturday. I don't think a lot of people are gonna be thinking about this game. I think they just kind of snuck this in there. I think this line is bad. I think the play is definitely Cincy here. Um,
Really?
yeah,
See,
I'm on
that
Cincy. I'll take
okay.
Cincy.
When I in a vacuum, yeah, but when I see the stink line moves towards the stink, if that makes sense, rather than normalizing, that dog tends to be the play. I'm not going to play this, but this is fascinating.
I
Um,
think that there's just a lot of public behind SMU because we've seen them be a pretty public team a couple times. I think
yeah.
so. I think the public's on SMU. I
When
like
one of the times was when they got absolutely crushed by UCF a
yeah.
few weeks ago. Maybe it's just the shine from TCU, just kind of reflecting off of SMU since SMU played them to within one
Hmm.
score. Okay. Last one. Memphis at Tulane. Tulane giving 7. That in conjunction with a total of 60.5. I don't know if somehow the market still doesn't believe in Tulane, or if they just really. I kind of have liked the Memphis offense from time to time. They've popped up in my top QB pluses, and I think they popped up my top wide receiver once or twice. But I'm having a hard time with Tulane, giving only 7 and that going over the typical total of 56. It doesn't make sense. I don't know if what am I missing that the market knows on this one.
Yeah, I've got like Tulane minus 8.8 points. So like about the same. Tulane minus 9. So slightly higher on Tulane than there. But again, basically the same kind of thing. I don't think this Tulane team isn't bad, but like I'm kind of a little scared of this Memphis team. They did some like they were competitive against Houston, very competitive against Houston. Almost won that game. Should have won that game. Um, very Memphis was very competitive against East Carolina. I don't hate. I probably don't want to touch this game. But like I think the play might be like Memphis, but I don't know. It's iffy. It's kind of iffy, but it could be potentially Memphis.
What total do you have on that one?
I have a relatively low total. I've got 18 plus 27, so that's 30,
45.
45. Yeah, I've
You've
got
got
a
that way under. Yeah, I've
yeah,
got that at 53. So we've both got that under. It was the 60 and a half that kind of just shocked me as much as anything else.
yeah. It's a pretty high total.
Yeah. Okay. All right. BBMI, brand based market inertia. Where do I think I'm smarter than the market? Miami giving 10 to Duke. Did this move?
Um, I got 9. I think I picked up an 8 yesterday. This line has moved all over the place. Um, but yeah, it's a very weird line to me. Makes zero sense to me at all what this line. Like the thing is, people again, this is kind of like Kansas. People keep massively
Yeah.
underestimating this Duke team and this Kansas team. This Duke team was competitive. They didn't beat North Carolina, but they covered the spread against North Carolina. And that was a game neither of us picked because we thought it was a model play, but it wasn't. But that was a game we both said we were on the podcast. We both said we were on, and Duke was the right play there. But yeah, I'm like I like Duke this weekend. Like I'm not like again, this Miami team, they didn't cover this number. They didn't cover a number smaller than this against Virginia Tech, and you're telling me that they're gonna lay a bigger number against Duke? No.
Virginia Tech can't throw the ball. They just can't
Yeah,
move the ball.
yeah,
I don't know if the market realizes just the continual sabotage that Mario is. Mario's the mole. I'm almost convinced. He might just be like a plant from Florida State at this point. I don't know. just it's not working. Um, all right, my top QBs. One name that popped up, number 24, Michael Pratt from Tulane. Um, the defense has been legit for quite a while now. Now that they've got a quarterback, he was out for a while with an injury for I think 1 or 2. Now that he's back, healthy, showing up there, just more reason to really like Tulane in terms of long-term viability for one of the top group of 5 teams. The bum list, the worst quarterbacks. This is kind of a, I don't know if this is irony. Everybody misuses that concept, but Braden Schrager of Hawaii is seventh. And that's noteworthy because they actually got their first win, even though their quarterback is just, one of the worst in all of college football. So great job, Nevada. Nevada's on a hot streak, losing back-to-back weeks against Colorado State and Hawaii.
God, yeah,
Um,
that Nevada team is not good at all. And the Hawaii team is also not good, but they're like somewhat improving. Like this is going to be like the rebuilding year for Hawaii, and then like next year they'll be like okay. So like next year they'll be like okay and make a bowl. So like that's how this season goes for them. But that being said, this week they play Colorado State, which is God, and you're getting 4.5 points. Which again, I don't think Colorado State played last week. I saw them play against Nevada, and oh my God, I really want to
that
take the
was
4.5. Like
that was
it's
a great game. That was just one of those. You know what that was? That was basically like the Big Ten West just moved to the state of Nevada because that was at Reno, I think, that Colorado State at Nevada game.
God, that game was horrible.
It was just
Just
some decent defense and a lot of bad quarterbacking.
Colorado State had no business being competitive in that game at all. I might actually just take Hawaii out of principle here. My model wants me to, and I want to. We'll see. I'll debate it. Let's see. But like four
I
and a half, that's way too many points. I think.
I believe that's two covers in a row for Hawaii because they covered against San Diego State the
Yeah,
the
they
week
did.
before.
Yeah, they're 21-point dogs and lost by one.
Oh man, the Mountain West. I love the Mountain West, but man,
Yeah,
they don't make it easy. I love them like I love the Big Ten West.
yeah.
My top receivers. Number one, again, Ollie Jennings of Old Dominion. Now 100 yards again, ahead of the number two wide receiver on this list. I like what Old Dominion's doing. I bet on them to win over 4.5 games this season, so I'm excited about that. And so please don't take this the wrong way, any Monarchs fans that might be out there. But I can't wait to see what this guy does as at a Power Five program. He's got to be there. I think it's a sophomore, so I don't think he can come out, or if he can, I don't think you're going to come out a year early from a Sun Belt Conference program.
If
But
he
man, this
is,
guy's awesome.
that's gonna be like a third or fourth round pick. Like this will be like the Bills take him in like the fourth round, or everybody's like, "Who's this guy?" We're like, "Oh my God!" This is like
Yeah.
that's like because that's the kind of pick the Bills would make. This just like deep because like they got Gabriel Davis, who was like a fourth or fifth rounder out of like UCF, and they got Khalil Shakir. Like that screams like that would be like the Bills would take a receiver like that. So, but
Hmm.
I think he probably goes to a Power Five though next year though. So, but we'll see.
Yep. Number three on this list is hadn't heard of this gent before. Shame on me. Not a lot of great receivers in the Big Ten West though. A guy named Trey Palmer for Nebraska. He had 7 catches for 237 yards at Purdue. So probably a big beneficiary of whatever magic Mark Whipple brought from Pittsburgh with him.
One thing I will say about this Nebraska Purdue game, like I was watching this game because I randomly bet Nebraska plus 13.5 and Nebraska plus 14. They covered it, but it was semi competitive for the cover. But like literally this game was just two teams with just wide open receivers. Like literally, like every time you look, it's like, oh man, here's this guy just literally wide open, and it's like this isn't even like like here's like he's 10 yards, like he's in the middle of the field, there's just no one around him for like at least 10 yards in like a giant 10-yard circle around him. They're just throwing to them, and it's on both sides too. Like it's not just Nebraska. Like Nebraska had a lot of wide open receivers, so like Nebraska like didn't look bad in that game, but also Purdue had their share of like completely wide open guys too. So that was just a massive, like a huge offensive explosion. That guy catching 7 passes for 237 yards. Yeah, that's definitely like what is that average? Like what, 40 yards a catch? 30.
It's more than 30, like 32,
Yeah,
33,
that's just
33.
crazy.
Yeah. And before the season, we got to put proper context around this. Um, we were we were down a little bit on Casey Thompson, not saying he's a bad quarterback, but just kind of saying, look, people are saying Nebraska's going to win the Big Ten West because they're going to reverse all those bad lucks and you know they have a great quarterback come in. I think we were saying let's just tap the brakes on the great quarterback, but he's been good. He's been a very good quarterback this season, and I don't think they have much of a running game to really help him too. They've got a guy with a great name that is Grant Kid, but he just doesn't really produce. Um, he kind of takes the does the whole show there, and credit to him. That's probably not the most fun thing to do is transfer. Then the guy that brought you in is fired in 3 weeks.
That's
So
true.
yeah. And then number 6 on my top receivers list, Jalen Hyatt. If you saw him against Alabama, you're probably wondering how is this guy not number one. Um, that just an awesome performance. That was just
I
an
think
amazing game to watch.
I think he caught like all 5 of the touchdowns. I
Yeah,
think or something. Yeah,
yeah,
crazy stat line. And again, like he was all like literally every time you see one of those highlights, it's just him just wide open. No one like it was not a complete wide open. Like him basically like no one could stop him.
yeah. They just couldn't stick with him.
They couldn't. And that was the thing. He just had an amazing performance and I really love what he did there against Bama and I want like I don't know if he's a sophomore or not, if he's sticking around for another year. Hendon Hooker, there's some concerns about his age. He's 25, he will be 25 in January. But like I haven't seen any articles about it today. Again, we are recording this on Monday, but I want to start reading some articles about Hendon Hooker, draft NFL draft buzz. I want to start seeing what that looks like and if there is some draft buzz about him because I kind of think there should definitely be, but I just don't know what round, etc. Right? So I think I kind of think that game might have put him in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm pretty horrible at projecting quarterbacks to the NFL, but having said that, I wouldn't be concerned about his age as much as maybe he's just a system guy. Um, it's who in the NFL runs things this quickly and has guys that get, that are as tough to stick with as Tennessee has. You just don't have that kind of talent differential in the NFL.
Yeah.
All right, USC update. This was not fun. I'll put it that way. It was a great game to watch, but being on the losing end of a 43-42 game where you trailed only for the last, I think, 23 seconds of the game, that's rough. Credit to Utah though. They really just did whatever they needed to do to win. They found some stuff that was working. They stuck with it. Their tight end almost set an NCAA record for most catches by a tight end, and why not? If basically you can just do that or just run that little quarterback sweep down the right side, and that's all you need to do to score 43 points. Good for you, Utah. 1 point game. My model had Utah -2, so I feel a little bit smart in that regard at least. Caleb Williams was awesome in that game. He was really, really solid. He settles in at 15th in my QB plus metrics. The offense is now up to 8th overall in all of FBS at a plus 10.3. That's really, really solid. Um, Jordan Addison's up to 14th in my wide receiver ratings. Unfortunately, he got hurt. I don't know if he'll be back. He was on crutches. Um, he was watching the end of the game, when they were trying to make that last effort that went really nowhere. The good news is Mario Williams, he was explosive in the prior game against Washington State, and he has rocketed up to 19th on my wide receiver ratings. So time for him to step up and be wide receiver number one. The defense, as I mentioned, was just horrible. They fell from 29th to 50th in my rankings. They're barely above average at a plus 1.7. Probably their best player in the front seven, maybe their second best, Eric Gentry, got injured at Utah. Don't know how long he's going to be out, but that could be a serious problem. Um, Interesting, they're still second overall in the Pac-12 behind UCLA. Their power rating actually went up in that Utah game. I think, the defense was bad, but the offense was so good, and it's at a tough venue, so I think they just got points all around for that. So Pac-12's got some interesting games coming up. USC is off, but you're starting to see more of these kind of like play in, play out games. For you had UCLA Utah, you just had USC Utah. Now you've got next week UCLA at Oregon. So a lot of fun games coming up, and then obviously besides the rivalry, you've got Oregon has to play Utah still, I believe too, and I think that's at Utah if I remember correct. Nope, Oregon State played at Utah, so I think it's going to be at Eugene. Oh
Mm,
man.
yeah. So so a couple of things about this. So yeah, I watched this game. This game was great. Just an amazing like performance by USC. Caleb Williams looks amazing. And again, I had coming into this season, I had some doubts about Caleb Williams. He was somewhat inconsistent last year at Oklahoma. That inconsistency is definitely gone. He's definitely, and again, this is kind of first year starting as a quarterback there in Oklahoma. That inconsistency is definitely gone. He's a lot crisper. Throws are just amazing. He's becoming like the thing of it is, it's a shame that he's probably not going to win the Heisman this year. That we define Heisman as like the best basically the best quarterback on the best team. It's crazy that we basically determine it that way. But like if you look at statistics, like and basically like strength and quality of team, basically, I kind of like he should be the Heisman. I think, to be honest with you, because
Really?
like, well, like
I would
CJ,
put Hooker ahead of him.
you put wow, you have that at
Yeah.
25-1. But the thing of it is, for like everybody, basically like the favorite right now is CJ Stroud at plus 100, and Hendon Hooker's 25-1. Maybe Hendon Hooker's worth a shot there, but like the thing of it is, I just think like CJ Stroud's great, but he's kind of more of a pocket passer, and also he's just like he's throwing to just these amazing wide receivers. Now, to be
Yeah.
fair, obviously USC has amazing wide receivers too, but like they have like what, two deep good wide receivers? Like you like Ohio State has four deep good
Yeah.
wide receivers, right? So you can't compare them. And like I honestly think Caleb Williams is like, again, he's not going to the NFL draft this year. Mostly the reason I know that is because I can't bet on him to be the number one overall pick. That's how I know. Like these guys know if he could be the number one overall pick, there would be a prop for him to be the one overall pick. But no, like he's going to be another year, and man, like next year is going to be fun, and then the year after that, man, like when he goes to an NFL team, man, that's going to be a really fun year. Like, and that's going to be a really fun team to watch, especially if you have the right talent behind him. Man, just watch out for that. The other thing I'd like to point out on that is the fact that, yeah, this defense is a problem now. This USC defense is a problem. And the thing of it is, I think while I still like this USC team in definitely spots, they're now. I mean, I think they're not going to make the. They're not. We can basically say they're not going to make the college football playoff now. And I think you were kind of low on them to do that anyway, but I think this kind of eliminates them. And I
Yeah.
think this also shows that, like, even if they were to make it somehow, which they theoretically still could, if insane chaos happened,
Yeah.
I don't like. I think they're gonna have the same kind of problem. They're gonna look similar to like what a Cincinnati, maybe like a Cincinnati or Michigan would have looked like last
They
year.
had better defenses. It would be ugly. It would be more like when Washington had to play Alabama
Exactly, right? Because it's gonna
or
be
the
like,
Notre Dame
yeah,
annual drubbing.
or Georgia, right? Like their defenses are better, so like they will get Caleb Williams will score points, but they're eventually going to be able to shut them down, and then but they're going to be able to score on will on this USC defense,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. And the thing of it is, I would much rather wait the year, have a good USC team, and again, you're going to give this team a year. You can get talent, you can get defensive talent through the portal, you can get all this stuff, build a better defense, and then you just like this team next year could be really scary. Like this
Yeah.
could be one of the best teams in college football next year if they can build a better defense. And like they hell of a fight there against Utah, and I'm looking forward to seeing this team next year. This team is actually very exciting. I've never particularly been a USC fan, but like I'm actually starting this team is fun. Like this isn't like okay, we're just gonna run for 5 yards every play team. This is like a fun like passing, and like it's just a fun team. I really like this team.
Yeah, no, this is the I haven't been this engaged, especially, by mid-October since basically 2017. So, you're correct. Although I still think that Hendon Hooker has a better case for the Heisman this season. Um,
You get 25-1 right now.
Still. Wow.
Yeah, if you want Heisman Trophy right now, handed. Oh, he's five plus 500.
There you go.
That seems more likely.
I didn't know this was a live broadcast. I thought this was going to be distributed later, but apparently somebody was listening to my compelling case.
Yeah, live bet it for. I saw him at 25-1. Because oh no, maybe that was wrong. I was looking at someone else. Um, but yeah, no, yeah, maybe I was looking at Bryce Young and thinking Hendon Hooker. But yeah, for like 500, like plus 500, plus 450. CJ Stroud is plus 100. So if you want CJ Stroud or if you want Hendon Hooker, but the problem though with Hendon Hooker though is that like, what if they lose to Georgia? Right, then
Yeah.
it's done. Right, but the thing of it is, on the flip side though, they
Well,
beat
if they lose
Georgia.
to Georgia, I could still think.
Uh,
Yeah.
but here the thing is, on the flip side though, if they beat Georgia,
Yeah.
then it's done. Then it's you're sitting there with a you're sitting there with a plus 5, because then who are they? They're gonna either beat Bama, and they have either Bama in a rematch, or potentially Ole Miss. Like Ole Miss is basically the only team that can catch them. So like I don't hate the idea of that.
Yeah, let me just look at this real quick. I'm wondering, if yeah, I was gonna say if instead of betting just even money on CJ Stroud to win the Heisman, why not just bet whatever you can on money line every game out on Ohio State? It's kind of the same thing you're betting on.
Yeah, that's true.
If they
Ohio
lose a
State,
game, he's not gonna probably not gonna win it, given
yeah,
that schedule.
true. Ohio State plus 170 to win it all right now. So
Somebody on this podcast got plus 440
yeah,
before the
that
season.
I think I do have an Ohio State future sitting around somewhere. But
All right.
yeah,
Speaking of before the season,
yes.
you gonna play me in here?
All right, here we go. You're good.
Oh, okay. So the first future bet to cash, we just saw Wisconsin. My bet under 9 wins comes in with their fourth loss of the season with a kind of improbable loss to Michigan State. Michigan State did all they could to give that one away, but Wisconsin, in true Graham Mertz fashion and all the glitz and glamour that he brings, was able to bring home loss number 4 and make your boy a winner on this one. Very delighted about that. All
Yeah,
right.
that
Yes.
was the Wisconsin fight song on YouTube. So we're not. Hopefully that was just random first one on YouTube we could find. Yeah, this was one. I mean, I looked at it. I wanted to take Michigan and the points. Michigan State and the points just didn't. I'm like, I can't do it. And again, sometimes staying away is the best option, right? Because that could have gone either way, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like Wisconsin looked horrible. Michigan State also looked pretty bad too. No one really looked good coming out of that game. So yeah,
Did you see the end of regulation?
I think someone missed a field
It
goal.
was a little better than that. You're leaving out all the good stuff. So Michigan State had, they had the ball in reasonable field goal range.
Oh
Third
yeah, that's
down,
right.
there's about 18 seconds left. They run some weird kind of pass in the flat that's not a flat and it's not near going out of bounds. And it just gets stopped for no gain. And they had to hustle up and you're hurrying up the kicker to get out there. And as soon as you see, they're running up and he's lining it up with like 7 seconds left. Like, there's no way this is going to go in. It was just classic, just horrible late game management. Strike in the big picture. I've been kind of bearish for a little bit now on Mel Tucker, but defensive guy with no good defense, strike one. Late game management like that, strike two. I mean, I his contract probably keeps him a long way from strike three, but man, that was just it was great to watch because it was so bad. It was like
Was it
getting to watch a car crash before it happens.
was it even a kick or was it one of those like when he did they do like a fake field goal?
No, it was a
No,
real
okay, it was
kick. It
okay.
just actually he fumbled the snap. That's right.
Oh yeah, he fumbled the snap. They tried to run it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it was
because
just
it was just you knew it wasn't going to
horrible.
work. It was just
Yeah,
everybody was just discombobulated.
yeah.
So great to watch though. All right, club hot seat. Arrivals and departures. Texas State coach Jake Spavital, he officially has a seat now. It's just not working out for him. Um, I think Indiana coach Tom Allen, I don't think he's there just yet, but he's bookmarked club hot seat in his Yelp app. I'll just put it that way.
He he he
He's
really
approaching.
he really should be there. But to be fair though, their quarterback is pretty bad though, right? Like this is the thing. And I think there's still some gleam from the 2020 COVID season. I think they're kind of like, well, we were not bad that
Yeah.
year, right? If we could just get like Michael Penix is gone, but if we could just get like a half decent quarterback, maybe we can do that. And I don't know. Like the guy, the players liked him. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I like him too personally. He seems like a good guy. But the quarterback is bad. And this is where I'm not going to say I would ever be a good football coach because I don't know anything about X's and O's or how to practice or anything. But I knew Connor Bazelak stunk last season. My metrics had that, and that's a guy that's not going to improve. And how does some idiot in Newport Beach know this, who's a CPA and hasn't played a snap of football in his life, but a football coach doesn't get that and wastes a scholarship and puts his career on the line of this kid that stinks, clearly stinks, is always going to stink.
Well, this is kind of the really big mystery of the transfer portal, and there's the commercial with the Dr Pepper commercial where like they just walk through this like gateway, and then some kid comes out with like it's like, oh, do you want a punter? And he's Doctor like the thing of it is, it's that commercial is so funny because it encapsulates because like yeah, he goes from Missouri and he just shows up in Indiana and no one knows how that happened. There's no like at least that we could publicly see of like did Connor Bazelak go to Indiana? Did he have like an open tryout? Was there like a day when he was like throwing footballs? Like we have no idea what happened. He just appears in Indiana. We're like, okay, I guess he's here now, right? Like it's it's so funny because like we have no idea what the scouting process on there was. Did he go like did he meet with Tom Allen there in Indiana? Like we have no idea. And this is not the only example of this, right? Like people just appear in random places and we're like, "Oh, I guess he's here now." We have no idea what happened. Like but again, to be fair, there's like we can't really track again, these college football reporters aren't tracked like around like Connor Bazelak watch in the off season. We're like, oh, he's
Yeah.
boarded a plane
Yeah.
to
No, yeah, it's not like the plane from like Starkville to, Miami or something like that.
exactly right. Like they're not tracking. It's like, oh, he's hopped on a commercial plane in the Missouri airport heading to Indiana. Like no, like so this is the thing, right? But it's a fascinating. Like I'd love to see what goes through the thought process. Like when they're looking at this, are they targeting like one or two guys, or like a list of guys they want, and then like they could only get certain people? Like we could only get like, did they target like a bunch of other ones? But then like, okay, I guess we have to settle for Connor Bazelak. Was he the number one on their list? What was the thought process behind getting him? Was like, did they see some tape they liked somewhere? Right, like this is the thing. So I
I
really,
can't see how the answer to that question is yes. I don't see how that is the case.
yeah, I mean that's true, but something somewhere they're like, we need that kid, and then
Yeah. Um, okay. Do you have a Narduzzi of the week?
I think there is just one on Narduzzi this week. It's Josh Heupel, Tennessee. I think you have to give it to him. Like that was, I mean, they just kept scoring against Alabama, and yeah, like just an amazing. And again, there's this has been what, a 2-year rebuild now. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people didn't think he would be the guy. Like there's a lot of people saying, oh, he's not the guy for the job. I think at some points I had even questioned it. Maybe I was mostly okay with it, but it was sometimes I like again before the start of the podcast, I'm like, maybe he's good, maybe he's not.
It seemed like a settle kind of
Yeah,
hire.
a
Like
settle,
this.
and it's definitely not been. Now, to be fair, again, a lot of that can be again, in the future years, we're going to see how much of that is Hendon Hooker. Was Hendon Hooker just a system QB? Is this actually like a good hire? But like, yeah, we're finally starting to see other teams become competitive in the SEC. Like Bama used to have this massive edge, and Texas A&M's figured them out, and Tennessee's figured them out now, and Georgia's figured them out now, and Florida's come close the last two times they've played. Like a couple of teams, they're starting to get closer to Alabama, and Nick
Yeah.
Saban's still there, right? So, like, the SEC's becoming more competitive, and I think that model is starting to get exported to other programs as well. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Lemming is doing the same thing in Oregon. Like we're starting to see this being replicated across the country, and we're starting to see some very dominant programs forming. So I'm pretty excited for that.
One point, I agree that he is very deserving. I go off the grid on these things, so he doesn't get mine. But I just want to point out one thing. Um, I think long term, I'm very happy for him. He seems like a good guy, very likable in the post game interview. Um, the one thing to keep in mind is this guy somehow for the first, and this gets really forgotten, especially now after this big win over Alabama. Let's not forget that he started Joe Milton the first few games of last season over Hendon Hooker, who was healthy. So uh, even a Narduzzi winner is liable to make really bad decisions from time to time. And if you're at
Yeah,
Wisconsin, they fire you for it. And if you're at Tennessee, if you recover, you're hailed as a genius.
yeah, that's true.
So mine actually, we hit on them a little bit. I just came to it right now. I'm going to give mine to Timmy Chang. First FBS win, and I didn't think they were going to win a game except for that Duquesne game. And it's not like they dominated a great team, but man, that program was in a your coach is so bad and has gutted this program so bad that he has to testify in front of the state senate. Any win deserves just huge congrats. So Timmy Chang, Hawaii coach, you get my Narduzzi of the week.
That's very fair. Yeah,
And it's still early and sunny there, so Good for him. All right. My group of 5 New Year's bowl bid rankings to end this part 1 of the pod. I'm gonna, my conference rankings. I have the Sun Belt as first, and then American second, like 2 points behind the Sun Belt. I'm just gonna ask you: do you think all things equal, the committee would actually see the Sun Belt as a tougher conference than the American, or do you think there's just a default position that whoever, if there's a best record in the American, or how do I say this? If the American champ has the same record as the Sun Belt champ, it's just going to go to the American just because there's a built-in brand bias there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there probably is with the American because again, you're gonna have blue chips like a bunch of teams that are not gonna be American next year, right? I think you got like Cincinnati there, right? So I suspect there will be a bias towards the American, but I think the Sun Belt is a better conference, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And I think again, this is extremely important to have for bowl time because we're going to be like, oh, look, random Sunbelt team versus CUSA team. I wonder who's going to like. This is the thing, right? So
yeah.
these are really good rankings to have, and it again, I suspect they'll probably rank the American higher, but Coastal losing is definitely going to hurt the Sunbelt, though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
But
I didn't want to talk about that. They lost to Georgia Southern, so thanks for bringing that up. But they are my number 5 team, just going in reverse order. Number 4, South Alabama, because I think they're just better at this point. Coastal looked just horrible in that game. Actually, no, Coastal lost to ODU.
yeah.
James Madison lost to Georgia Southern.
Oh yeah. Well, so the one thing I want to say about Coastal here quickly is because they have the most they have like by far the most perplexing lines. So like you'll have right, and I'm not sure if you've noticed this too, but like randomly they'll be like, "Oh, Coastal minus 11." And then it's like they don't cover the spread, but then it's like, "Okay, fine, Coastal's bad. Coastal minus 2.5." And then they blow that team out. And it's like I think the books don't know what to do with this team. But the thing is, hilariously, my book, like my model does. Like my model's like really good.
Yeah.
Like I think I had that line a lot closer than what that line was. And I'm like, I'm gonna stay away from like I should be betting Coastal like, literally every week. I should be betting either on or against them. But when I like them, I bet on them. Like when I like when they're on a small line and I like them, I bet on them. But when I don't, I just don't touch that game at all. And I should probably bet on against them more. But this is the thing. But it's so funny that like this team, it just the books have no idea what to make of them. And like I don't think they play this week. But like watch the next line's gonna be like minus 2.5 or something crazy, where they're just gonna blow out some random team and it's gonna be funny. But
Yeah, no, you make a good point. This is why I like the G5 so much. Just the markets are so much more liquid and there's just easier numbers to pick off there.
mhm.
So yeah, sticking to the one-loss teams at this point, there's only 5 of them. Like I said, I have Coastal number 5, South Alabama number 4. Have them in the bottom 2 spots of the remaining 5 teams, just because I think the Sun Belt's going to get screwed. So my top 3 then is UCF. I don't see them remaining with 1 loss, but they have the resume right now. 2
How
Cincinnati.
do they have one loss, man? How is that even possible? Like this, their quarterback is really bad.
Yeah, he stinks. He can't throw the ball.
That's
But
that's crazy. It's like
I
breaking news. UCF only has one
well,
loss.
yeah. I mean, who have they played the last few
That's true. Oh,
weeks?
that's
You
true.
know, and I don't know. Then it helps to play Jeff Collins' version of Georgia Tech in your
Yeah,
non-conference as well.
you get that lucky week week. So yeah.
Number 2, Cincinnati, and still bullish on Tulane. Now they've got complementary offense and defense at number 1, and that is all I have for part 1 of the podcast.
Yes. So join us again in part 2 where we're gonna talk about our nerd doozies and we're gonna talk. I'm gonna have my deep dive and and basically BuckMetrics deep dive and we're gonna make our picks for this upcoming week. See you then.